Yo, Kpaceguy here. What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. And today I want to talk about understanding your speaker. And this is going to go for every speaker ever made. So it's no matter what manufacturer you went with, no matter what brand of speaker you have, no matter what type of speaker you have, this is going to pertain to you. So I want to kind of help you guys understand what goes on in the speaker. And for reference, I'm using the Canton A96.2, their floor standing speaker that has multiple drivers within the cabinet. So each speaker in this system has its own specific duties. Some people may think that each driver plays everything, but that's not the case. Each driver has its own set of frequencies it's responsible for. So if we start here with this one, this is the tweeter here. And we all know what a tweeter does. It handles the high ranges. We also call that treble or the high end frequencies. This is your tings and your light noises. The female voices kind of stay here. That's where the high ranges are going to come from. Most speakers have some kind of circular pattern over top of the tweeter. We call that a waveguide, which helps disperse some of that sound outward into the room. Now, this is the most directional speaker in the whole cabinet. And what I mean by directional is, let's say I was to put my hand over my mouth to yell something at somebody. Now I'm amplifying my sound and targeting towards something specific. Same thing with a tweeter. A tweeter has something sort of like this around it that helps bring that sound forward and shoots it towards your listening position. And it still has a little bit of dispersion to it, but for the most part, it's going to a certain point. And this is what that ring is for on just about every speaker. Manufacturers do it all differently, but they all kind of have the same end goal, which is to reach your ear and reach the whole listening position directly. So this is the most directional speaker in the system, and it's the most important to get correct. You usually want to have your tweeters pointed at ear level or just right past it. So check that out. Next, we have 3 different drivers. Now, this is where I really want to break it down. Now, these are all 3 mid-range drivers. There's not really many full-range speakers that are able to play a lot of bass. So these are all mid-range drivers, but they don't all play the same information. So let's move up to the top one here. This is a 6-inch mid-range driver. And this handles a lot of the voices, especially the male voice, a singing voice, or maybe there's some dialogue coming from the right side of the screen from the movie. It's going to be here. This one handles more of the upper mid-range, we'll call it. So it handles a certain amount of frequencies. Now, when those frequencies start to dip into the lower frequencies, it starts to pass it down through here. Now, these are all active speakers, meaning there's power going to each one of these speakers. If it was passive, like a passive radiator, then it relies on these speakers to get its movement. We'll explain that in just a moment. So this speaker here is more for the upper mid-range, say 600, 700, 800, 900, and so hertz. When you start to move down in the frequency, you also start to pass that information to the next driver in the group here. These are both 7-inch drivers. They both handle the lower frequencies, say 20 hertz, 25, 30. So as the tone starts to dip in frequency, this stops playing them and passes it into these speakers here with what we call a crossover that's built into the system. A crossover, we all know crossover as far as setting our speakers, but there's a crossover built into a speaker itself that dictates which speaker is going to play what. So let's say I put a 700 hertz tone, it's going to play here. And if I put a 20 hertz tone, it's going to stop playing here, it's going to play here. Now let's say I do a 20 kilohertz tone, it's not going to play on any of these 3. It's going to play on the tweeter. So each speaker has its own duties within the frequency spectrum to give you a cohesive speaker. Now let's talk about one thing that I just mentioned, a passive radiator. They are drivers within the cabinet that don't have any power. Let's say that these 2 were passive radiators and these 2 were active speakers. When this speaker moves in and out and produces bass, these speakers also move in and out as well. And what these do, what passive radiators do, is perform like a ported speaker, but with no port. So let's say this speaker was completely sealed, meaning there's no port on this speaker. These are now my ports, my passive radiators. Passive radiators are nice because they help emphasize the low end without the port chuffing and the port noise that you could get from a ported speaker. It also opens up some listening options and positioning options as well. If you need to put a speaker against the wall, having a speaker with a port on the back, it may muddy your sound and sound distorted, boomy, and all sorts of different things. But a passive radiator acts like a port without having one. So you get a nice clean sound and you don't have to drive these speakers. The air within the cabinet drives these speakers and recreates that low bass noise. So that's really nice to have. In my case, all 4 of these speakers are powered. So these are going to be my bass drivers down here, my upper mid-range here, and then my tweeter here. All right, guys, so the last thing that I want to touch on about understanding your speaker is the back side. On most speakers, you're going to have a sticker or some kind of labeling next to the speaker terminals, a few different things of information. You're going to see maybe max power, RMS power, impedance or ohms, and then you may see sensitivity rating. And I'm going to break that down, and we're going to use the back side of my speaker as reference, and I'll zoom in on it so you guys can see. So on the back of my speaker, the Canton Vento 896.2s, it says that this speaker is between a 4 and an 8 ohm speaker. So what does that mean? It means that between whatever the music source is and the volume level, how much bass that's in that song, all these different components will factor in how much power the speaker is going to draw from my amplifier. The lower the number, the more power that speaker is going to ask from your amplifier. So 4 being the lowest, that's going to mean it's going to want the most power. 8 being the bigger number means it's going to want a little bit less power compared to 4 or compared to 6 or something like that. So what ohms is, impedance means how much power is that speaker going to draw. And this is rated between 4 and 8. So at any given time, it could ask a heavy load on my amplifier, or sometimes it could play a little bit nicer. So it just means that there's a lot of different components that will tell my receiver, hey, I need more power at this moment. Okay, never mind, I think I need just a little bit less. That's kind of how you break down ohms or impedance. It's how much power that speaker is going to draw. Now you'll also see on my speakers, it has 2 different power ratings. It has 180 watts nominal, and then it has a music power rating of 340 watts. Canton is a German-made speaker, so they kind of say things a little bit differently than us in North America. But what they're saying is it's 180 watts RMS, meaning continuous power, what the speaker is going to draw or handle continuously. And then the music power rating of 340 watts, that's going to be its max power. So it can't take 340 watts all the time, but it's able to handle small bursts of it every now and then. So again, 180 watts is going to be its RMS rating, or what it can handle at all given times without any problems, distortion, heat, anything like that. And then the 340 watts is going to be its max, what it can take every now and then, not continuously, because then you'll destroy the speaker, but every now and then 240 watts is okay. So Canton calls it musical power, but the bigger term that you're going to hear from both car audio and home audio is just max power. So the max handling is 340 watts, and then is 180 watts RMS continuous. The RMS number is what you want to care about. We don't care about max power because max power is not something that speaker or amplifier can handle all the time. It's going to be burst. It's not going to be something that it can sustain. The 180 watt is something that it can sustain. That's the number we care about. So when you're looking at speakers and you're looking at products like receivers and amplifiers, pay attention to the RMS wattage. Do not worry about max power output because it cannot do that for a long period of time, but it can handle the RMS wattage for a long period of time. So keep that in mind when you're looking for speakers and amplifiers. So I don't have this label on my speaker, but you will see it on the websites, the spec sheets, and sometimes they come on other speakers. And that's going to be the sensitivity rating. What is a sensitivity rating? Sometimes you may see sensitivity 85 dB, or you may see a clip speaker say sensitivity 98 dB. The higher the number, the more efficient that speaker is going to be. So let's use Klipsch for example. Klipsch is known for being a super efficient speaker, meaning all their speakers are rated 90, 92, 95 dB sensitivity. What does that number mean? It's saying that you can power this speaker with a wide range of amplifiers because it can take little wattage or it can take a lot of wattage and make really good music and movie sound. So my speakers here, the Canton Ventos, are in the mid 80s, and that's considered to be a fairly low efficient speaker, meaning that it takes a lot more power to get the speaker performing than something, say, a Klipsch that has a high sensitivity rating, 90, 95, 99. So sensitivity tells you one key thing: what amplifier you should pick to power it. So for my Cantons, we know that its RMS rating of power is 180 watts RMS. And we know that it's fairly low sensitivity. So I need to find an amplifier that's going to give me 180 watts RMS that's going to be able to handle a poor sensitivity speaker like Canton. And I have that. The Monoprice Monolith gives me 200 watts at 8 ohms. So if you have a speaker that has 95 dB sensitivity, then you can power it with a lot of different amplifiers that are lesser power. It just means that if your speakers are less sensitive, it means you just need more juice to power it. If your speakers are better efficient, then you don't need a hefty amplifier to power that speaker. You can get away with something a little bit cheaper or a little less power versus something like Canton, where you need something a little bit beefier to get it going. So that's really how you break down and understand these speakers. All right, guys, so that's going to do it for understanding your speaker. I wanted to sit down and take some time to talk about this because I don't know that there's a lot of footage or a lot of forums or anything like that on the subject matter, and maybe you were curious. I do apologize for how long this video was, but I felt like this would help a lot of people in picking out maybe a speaker or an amplifier. So this is how you understand a speaker. There's so many different components that go inside a speaker to make it perform. Not every driver is created equal. They all have their different roles. So guys, leave me a comment down below and tell me, what speakers do you have and what kind of design is it? Is it a two-way? Is it a three-way? Is it sealed? Is it ported? Is it passive speaker? Does it have a subwoofer built in? Let me know what speakers you have and let me know its configuration in the comment section down below. Hit that like button and subscribe if you are not already. We will see you in the next video. Kpaceguy out. Peace.